This video is sponsored by Nakano Knives. More about them coming up shortly. Hello, hi everyone. Welcome back to Woo Can Cook. My name is Wesley, and this is a show where we are slowly cooking our way through all of the food from my childhood. Today we're diving back into our series dedicated to Korean comfort food classics with a shot at the Korean glass noodle dish known as Japchae. For those unfamiliar, Japchae is most iconically made using a sweet potato glass noodle known as dangmyeon, topped with an assortment of veggies, then tossed in a sweet and savory soy sauce and sesame oil glaze. Although japchae is very commonly paired with a thinly sliced piece of beef known as bulgogi, vegetarian versions of this dish are also very common too, and in fact I think I've most commonly come across this dish in restaurants without protein at all, often served as a small plate banchan dish to be shared before the main courses arrive. In any case, since we'll be serving ours with a bulgogi beef, this means that we are once again diving into the tricky and complicated world of recreating the smoky sear and flavor of a barbecue beef without a barbecue. This, of course, is particularly difficult with a bulgogi beef because of the high sugar content in its Asian pear-based marinade, meaning that we'll be walking a fine line between searing and burning those sugars. Is there a difference? I mean, yeah, sort of. Okay, so let's get into it. Alright, so diving right in, we're kicking things off here first with our dried dehydrated ingredients, since these are gonna need some time to rehydrate while we prep our remaining ingredients. Up first here are my glass noodles, about 8 ounces worth, rehydrated in boiling water for about 10 minutes until tender. I like to agitate these noodles for about 2 to 3 minutes until they become a little bit more pliable, then after which these can pretty much be set aside to soak until you're ready to eat. They are not going to overcook without a heat source, I assure you. Next up, rounding out our rehydrating, is about 6 shiitake mushrooms, also rehydrated in boiling water for about 5 minutes. While these are soaking, I'm diving into my veggies here next. First up are my aromatic veggies, which today will be added straight into our bulgogi marinade. This is 4 cloves of crushed and minced garlic to start, followed by 1 inch or about 1 tablespoon of fine minced ginger, and the whites of 3 green onions sliced up thinly, all tossed straight into our marinade bowl. Then next, I'm taking these reserved greens of my green onions, slicing these up into about 1 inch planks, and setting aside to head straight into our japchae later on raw. Moving right along, rounding out our raw veggies today is going to be about 3 inches of cucumber, which I'm splitting into quarters so that we may remove their seeds, then julienning, which of course is the most annoying and labor-intensive chop known to man, so I'm thrilled to say that we're also doing the same exact thing with our carrots too. Yay. In any case, rounding out our veggies today is going to be half of a medium white onion, sliced with our knife at a slight angle for an even chop to account for the curve of the onion. Then rounding this all out finally is our shiitake mushrooms, now successfully rehydrated, sliced into strips and heading straight into our marinade bowl as well so that they may marinate alongside with our bulgogi coming up. Now a quick digression, and my hope is that this is a common and generally understood theme to this entire channel really. These are the veggies that I chose to add to our japchae today, but are not necessarily the ones that you have to use for yourselves. Bean sprouts, spinach, bell peppers, and a lot of other veggies would also be nice additions too, truly depending on how much chopping you really want to do today, which is to say a lot easier when equipped with a quality, well-sharpened knife like this beautiful Nakano Santoku knife that I've been using all day. As many of you know, the knife that I've been using in basically every single video that we've done on this channel is a 150-year-old French carbon steel chef's knife. It's made by an extinct manufacturer though, so for years now I've come up short on answers when folks ask, what kind of knife should I buy for myself? Nakano's Santoku knife is made with high-quality carbon stainless steel, meaning that it will stay sharp over a long period of time. Now, this is a knife demonstration, so of course we're going to shred some paper and prove how absurdly sharp this knife is out of the box, but if I'm being totally honest, pretty much any knife is capable of doing this, provided that it's been properly sharpened. What I personally look more for in a nice knife is the way that it feels in my hand, how it's balanced, the ergonomics of the handle and tang, and so on. Probably the biggest point of contention for me in this department is the spine of the knife, which rubs against the palm of your hand as you chop. A well-crafted knife like this one will have taken the time to round out and shape the spine of the knife for comfort, whereas the cheaper knives that I've used will often have a razor-sharp spine that digs into the palm of your hand and causes blisters over time. So, I put this all to the test when Nakano sent this knife over, and I took this santoku to a Woo-Can-Cook prep day, where I essentially spent 6 straight hours chopping green onions and lapchang, and it passed all of my tests. It's comfortable, well-balanced, and it doesn't wear against my hand too much. For folks who are interested, read more about Nakano in the description of this video or visit nakano-knives.com/woocancook and use the discount code WooCanCook to save 10% off of your total purchase. In any case, back to our dinner here, we're diving into what I think very well may be the most important ingredient in any bulgogi, maybe even more important than the beef itself, which is this Asian pear, or sometimes apple pear, that I'm peeling and grating directly into the marinade bowl. Now, for what it's worth, on many occasions I have tried and failed to substitute this Asian pear with things like green apple, red delicious, Bartlett pears, and honestly, the sugar content and texture of the Asian pear is just too unique to substitute. I'm sorry, y'all. Up next here, this is a single pound or 16 ounces worth of skirt steak that I'm using today, which I'm honestly not super thrilled about. While skirt steak is a great sub for flank steak in dishes like Mongolian beef or beef chow fun, the way that skirt steak is generally chopped when it comes from the butcher shop is not super compatible with the thin slices that we need for our bulgogi today. For your own attempts, I may instead recommend using flank or top cut sirloin, which will be much easier to slice into thin pieces, and for those looking, we did dive into a flank steak bulgogi in our dulsat bibimbap recipe here. In any case, for those stuck using skirt steak like me, I'm first trimming off all of this connective tissue and excess fat, then doing my very best to achieve a thinly sliced piece of beef, all while chopping against the grain as much as possible. I'm adding this all to my marinade bowl and moving this all into a larger bowl so that we may dive into the liquids of our marinade next. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, the barbecue beef bulgogi marinade is iconically a very sugar-forward marinade, yielding a sweet and savory soy sauce glaze to our beef. Up first here is 4 tablespoons of low-sodium soy sauce and a single tablespoon of dark soy sauce to start, followed by 2 tablespoons of brown sugar and a single tablespoon of sesame oil for some added fat. Then rounding everything out is going to be 2 tablespoons of mirin rice wine for some nice acidity. I'm mixing this all to combine, then setting aside for 30 minutes while my beef and mushrooms marinate. Meanwhile, in a separate bowl, we're assembling our soy sauce seasoning to our japchae next, which I think is pretty intentionally bare bones because really the highlight of the show today is our sesame oil, and if we add too many things to this sauce, that sesame oil is going to get lost pretty fast. So, going in here first is another 4 tablespoons or a quarter cup of soy sauce to start, followed by a single tablespoon each of brown sugar and rice vinegar for some nice sweetness and acidity. Then next, as promised, this is a single tablespoon of sesame oil, followed by another tablespoon of toasted sesame seed going in. I'm mixing this all up to combine, then setting aside for a moment while we whisk up some eggs next. We're making a wok fried egg pancake here so that we may cut this into strips as an additional garnish for our japchae. I'm doing this with 3 egg yolks separated from their whites and seasoned with a pinch of kosher salt. Then I'm heating a wok over medium heat, adding 4 tablespoons of peanut oil and, as always, long yao for that nice non-stick surface. I'm rotating the wok to set the egg, then doing a much better flip than that, before adding to my cutting board to slice into strips. Back over on the stove, I have my wok heating up as hot as possible now, then I'm adding 4 tablespoons of peanut oil and doing 1 more long yao so that we may begin sauteing our veggies here. Here's my carrot and onion going in for about 2 to 3 minutes until tender but still crispy, then I'm reheating the wok and searing our steak next. Now, here's where things are gonna get a little tricky because a bulgogi is iconically cooked over an open flame, yielding a smoky, crispy quality to our beef. We obviously are not in front of a barbecue today though, so I'm instead making do with a quick wok sear using a bit of wok hay to recreate that iconic smokiness. Is this the same thing? Of course not, but we'll make do, y'all. I'm adding my steak in batches here, being careful not to overload the wok, then searing undisturbed for 2 minutes over medium heat before turning the fire up to high and tossing the wok tilted downward for some nice wok hei. We are, as I mentioned earlier, exercising a lot of caution as the heat turns up, making sure that we don't burn those sugars in our marinade, because if we sear on high heat for too long, those sugars are gonna burn, which is no good. Back over on the cutting board, I've strained my glass noodles, then I've added them to a large mixing bowl so that we may combine everything that we just cooked. Here's my onions and carrots going in, followed by my cucumbers and the greens of my green onions, then my bulgogi, eggs, and our sauce mixture to finish. Then finally, we're tossing this to combine with some tongs, or for the brave, getting right in there with your hands, y'all. Finally, before we serve, I'm using some kitchen shears to cut up our noodles, as potato starch noodles are often obnoxiously long, and we're ready to eat. Okay, so I will start off by acknowledging what I know that many of y'all are thinking. That was like 90% prep work and about 10% actual cooking on the stove, which, yeah, it really was. And that's mostly because the majority of a japchae is assembled off heat, with much of its components in fact left completely raw. I think this actually has a profound effect on the way that the dish comes together. I wouldn't necessarily call this a cold noodle dish because of all of its cooked components, but it definitely at least is in the realm of a room temperature noodle though, which for sure is an important aspect of how it's served as a banchan small plate. This also, I think, has an effect on the quality of the final dish too. Since most of the dish was not cooked over heat, a lot of our sauce elements are left more fragrant and forward than they otherwise would be if they were cooked, like our rice vinegar and sesame oil, which I think is pretty unique. Okay, so that's it everyone. I hope you enjoyed this and I hope you give this one a shot. For those who are new to the channel, this one is part of a larger series that's dedicated to Korean comfort food classics, so definitely check out that series next if you haven't yet, because there's a lot of these. For the Bay Area locals, the Woo Can Cook fried rice pop-up is at the West Oakland Farmers Market in Oakland every Sunday morning, so come by and say hi if you can. More about that at woocancook.com/eats. Finally, a special thanks to Nakano Knives for sponsoring this video. If you haven't yet, head over to nakano-knives.com/woocancook and check out their Mito series for some solid, affordable chef's knives. As always, like, comment, subscribe, share, be nice to interneters, and I'll see you soon. Bye.